Welcome to the Hey Docs podcast with your host, Jill Allen. Today we're joined by Amanda Cabrera from eNox to talk about why your brand consistency matters and how your online presence shapes your patient's experience. We'll dive into the key elements of strong first impressions, common branding mistakes, and a simple way to reduce friction in the new patient journey. If you want to make every touch point count, this episode is for you. Let's dive in. This episode was brought to you by Gray Finch. Hey docs, if you want to have a great business, the right practice management software is essential. But some can be slow, outdated, and lacking good support. That's why I recommend Gray Finch to all orthodontists. It's the fastest, most reliable, and most secure platform to grow your business and improve your efficiency. It's completely web-based, so you can run your entire practice anywhere and from any device with no servers, no downloads, or hidden fees. They even have the most helpful and responsive support team around. Right now, Gray Finch is giving a $500 discount to our listeners. Visit grayfinch.com/Jill Allen to learn more and see why it's one of the fastest growing providers in America. Hey docs, it's that time of year again. AAO 2025 is just around the corner and we can't wait to see you in Philadelphia. Jill Allen and Associates will be at booth number 2250, so be sure to stop by. Whether you're new and looking to connect, an industry partner, or a friendly face from the past, we'd love to catch up. And since this year's theme is the biggest party ever, we're kicking off things right with an exclusive happy hour sponsored by Provide, the leader in tech-enabled financial services for aspiring and established healthcare practice owners on April the 24th. Great people, great conversations, and the perfect way to start AAO in style. Spots are limited, so you must RSVP. Use the link in the show notes and be sure to mention Hey Docs to get your name on the list. But listen, guys, the fun doesn't stop there. Join us at our other co-hosted events, the Celebration Party on Friday and the Mary's List Party on Saturday. See you in Philly, and remember to come by and say hi at booth number 2250. Amanda, I am so excited to have you here on Hey Docs. I would love it if you could just start us off by telling us a little bit about yourself and your role.
Yes, definitely. We're an orthodontic marketing agency. We've been around for a little over 20 years. We do really everything it takes to define your story, help our practices figure out who they are, and then get that message out to their potential patients, and then follow through the process to make sure that it's working and we're customizing that strategy. So my role at eNox is really to do everything it takes to keep the agency moving and provide a better service for our clients. So I've been at eNox for 8 years now. I've been working with Malcolm, our founder. Whenever I talk to a new potential client and they're like, oh yeah, I'm the office manager, but I also answer the phones and I also do this. And then my TC on Thursdays, I'm like, girl, I get it. I am, you are me. So definitely, I think that kind of sums up the relationship. I understand that kind of small agency, lots of hats. We are a smaller agency by design because we want to be able to provide very one-on-one support to our clients. I want our clients to be able to call in. I'm going to answer the phone, connect them directly to the experts. So we do a little bit of everything from a marketing standpoint, from websites, SEO, branding, strategy, and then we are regionally exclusive. So we don't work with any practices who are a competitor of our clients, which really helps us to hone in on that one-on-one personal relationship. We can have very candid and trustworthy conversations. And they know that I'm not giving the same information to the guy next door or something. So it's really fun. I've held every role in the agency to be able to kind of get where I am now and just really focus on how can we continue to be better for our clients.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And We have had a chance to work together over the years and had multiple clients that we've worked on. And I really do appreciate you guys and the space that you stand in there, especially just, I love what you said about you're smaller by design. And I think it's cool to think about because I really do think that does help a lot in that giving, like you just said, that real personalized attention and taking each client as they are. It's kind of like what I do. We're going to not take a cookie cutter approach to everything that we do. You've got to hear what is motivating each client, why they are coming to your team to get the help. And that kind of leads me into one of the first things that I wanted to really talk about today, and that's branding. And I know that you and I both, when I'm working with startup doctors and you guys are working a lot of times with startup doctors or maybe even existing practices or clients that are really trying to understand branding. I would love it if we could talk about that and jump into that as far as what does that mean and what does it mean to be creating consistency and a trustworthy experience within a brand. We'll start there and then I've got a couple more questions about that.
Okay. So I think the first thing to think about is what is branding, right? There's sometimes this misconception that it's just your logo or it's just the colors that you choose, but really it's so much more than that. Like it's the experience and the feeling that people have when they're interacting. So it's so important because there's so many different ways that your practice is going to have their imagery be out there beyond just the visual. It's also like how your team's interacting with potential patients also. And so when you're thinking about why it's so important, there's actually a like scientific phenomenon that goes along with that. It's called the mere exposure effect. And what that means is like the more often that researchers have found, the more often that they are exposed to something, generally like subconsciously when they don't even realize it's happening, the more likely they are to find it inherently trustworthy and have like positive feelings towards that.
Sure.
And so when you're creating a brand and that experience, that imagery, everything needs to be so cohesive and consistent because every one of those touch points, like every time someone sees that, it's going to start building up that expectation of trust and familiarity. And so it's so important to be thinking about kind of the unknown ROI of building a brand and having that awareness because it's going to help your potential patients to trust you. Sometimes they call it like the Kardashian effect, right? There's this idea that are Kardashians or are celebrities actually attractive, or is it just we see their faces so often that they set that beauty standard? Because like our lizard brains are just like, okay, that's familiar and safe. So like I recognize that. So even something like we encourage our practices to like post pictures of their doctors and their TCs and their social media, make sure those faces are getting out there because that's part of your brand, right? And the more often that someone's like scrolling and seeing those people and seeing the same colors and logos and themes, the more often like when they come into your office and see that person, they're like, oh, I know you. I feel familiar. I feel like I've met you before. Yeah. And so when you're thinking about your brand, it's all those different pillars of what does it look like? How can I make sure everything visual kind of looks like a family? But then also what is that experience going to be like, that feeling? And how can I keep that consistent as well so that people are primed to just trust you when they finally get to that point? Because I think sometimes we forget that so much of the new patient experience happens before they ever come into your office.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And I could not agree with you more. And I think I'm going to take it all the way back to the first thing you said. I think so many times people think it is just about this one mention. Oh, it's just the colors and this logo that I'm going to spend a lot of money to develop.
Yeah.
And really that is truly such a small component to what, as you just said, your brand and your brand voice and that brand experience really is about. And as we think about our orthodontic practices, and nowadays especially, I feel like there are so many different ways that patients interact with our practices and with our brand. I'm wondering if you can maybe talk a little bit about, I don't know, maybe some of the inconsistencies that maybe you see in orthodontic practices and what they're doing with the different ways that they're marketing, and maybe even give us some tips on how they could fix them.
Okay. Yeah. So I think there's inconsistencies and then there's also just kind of missed opportunities a lot of times. So, from a visual standpoint, when we're thinking about that effect that's going to build trust, what we're really trying to do is build like a cohesive, consistent, repeated exposure, like a consistent unit. And so, we want to create something visually that looks like a family. And so, if you're not like on your social media post using branded colors and branded templates, maybe you just went into Canva and picked a generic one and said, oh, it's St. Patrick's Day. I'm just going to pick one with a leprechaun. That's a missed opportunity. You're taking that investment of time to make that post, to make your team member spotlight. So it can be a missed opportunity to not go a little step further and have a custom branded social template so that there is that consistency there of just that little tick of that's that color, that's that logo when someone's scrolling, that's going to start priming them for that trustworthy experience, right?
Yeah.
And so making sure that you're using consistency in your social templates, using consistency even in like photo filters when you're posting your pictures in your stories, using the same filter so that if someone's scrolling, that picture just looks the same as the others. So you want to make sure you're always looking back and saying, how can I make this kind of mirror the thing previously? Because that trustworthy building experience is going to happen of repeated exposure. It takes a lot of touch points to get there. So definitely from the visual, you want to be thinking about that. From the feeling and kind of experiential side, you want to be making sure that your online presence really reflects your in-office experience because so much they're like exactly one and the same. And with our clients, like we do site visits where it's really helpful to go and really feel what it's going to be like in their office. And I've sat in offices where it's like the music's bumping and it's so exciting and everyone's happy to be there. And it's like this one, it's a party, right? And then I've sat in ones where it's like a spa and it's very muted and relaxing. And those are both good experiences, right? One is not better than the other, but they are very different and they are going to compel a different audience to want to be in that situation, right? And the misstep is when you're expecting one thing and then you get something else. So if your website is presenting this very professional, buttoned up clinical experience, like, or like the spa, very high end, and I come in and you're like slinging Dippin' Dots and there's a jungle gym and it's all these things, I'm going to be like, oh my gosh, this is not what I expected. Sure. And I think subconsciously as humans, like we don't like to be surprised. We are constantly just trying to like create systems to fill in the gaps of our brains. And so it's so important that online experience is reflective of your in-office experience because it's going to help someone to not have that disjointed moment where they're like, oh, this wasn't what I expected. And now I'm on guard. So everything online, really the goal needs to be to make them feel comfortable enough to invest their time and their money with your practice. And if they feel surprised or taken off guard, that can be a negative kind of experience. So definitely the visual, the feeling experience, and then also the interactions. We try to always tell our practices, like if you wouldn't do it to someone standing in front of you in your office, you shouldn't be doing it online. And because really they are one and the same. Yep. So if someone was standing in front of you, giving you a compliment, you wouldn't just be like, okay, whatever. So you wouldn't not respond to that positive review. SEO aside, like responding to reviews is so important for SEO. But even if that wasn't a factor, if we took that out of it, it's still so important to just grant being and thank someone for taking the time to say something nice. In the same way with a negative review, like HIPAA compliance aside, if someone was standing in front of you, like saying, hey, I'm really upset, I would hope that your front desk doesn't stand up and say, you didn't pay your payment and you didn't come in. No, you're going to be like, hey, let's take this offline. Let's go talk privately somewhere else. So we want to make sure that we are responding to those kind of things, comments, engaging with people in a professional, positive way like we would. And also friendly. If you are a friendlier office, it's okay to be a little informal because you want that tone to be consistent. And then lastly, just follow up and the patient service experience. If someone was standing in front of you saying, I want to schedule an appointment, you wouldn't be like, I'm on lunch. So just with all of it, always imagine if this person, I think sometimes like the internet feels like a barrier, like leads and potential patients and online users, like they're humans with a human experience. And we have to sometimes remember that the same person who's doing a form online is the physical person that's going to walk into your office. And sometimes that can be a little hard because it gets broken down to data, right? Oh, we have this many leads. No, this many people, humans took the time to do it. So just thinking about the inconsistency or consistency of the in-office to the online is going to be helpful to prime that patient so they feel comfortable enough to invest their time and money with you.
I think, gosh, I could go on so many little rabbit trails with what you just said. And I think I want to talk just a little bit more about website. But before we get there, you brought up something that I think is so important for doctors to really think about. And I believe that an experience in a practice evolves as a doctor matures within their practice, if that makes sense. Because again, working with a lot of startup doctors, it's hard to have this really on point culture when you're starting with yourself and one employee. Now, you may have a vision, and I hope all my doctors out there, when you're thinking about, if you're thinking about doing your own practice or you're thinking about purchasing a practice, I hope that you have a vision about the experience you want your patients to have. And it is so much beyond how quickly do we get them in and out of the new patient exam and can we get them to yes. There's just so much more about what that experience is about, and then how it completely plays into your brand. And so it makes me think a lot about especially existing practices where they may have done a website, I don't know, 8, 10, 12 years ago, and it doesn't even mirror what maybe the culture that they have built up in their practice. And I think sometimes they forget, to the point that you just made, that if the patients are seeing one thing and getting another thing in the office, could be either way, a really great experience online and not a great experience in the office, or vice versa. It could actually impact even same day starts, the way patients show up. It just has so much. I think nowadays they're integrated. And so I'm just thinking about that and what you said. I think it just brings home the point even more, so you cannot not have that confusion.
And I think too, like, the authenticity is so important, because a lot of times, especially with startup practices, sometimes we'll talk to a doctor and they might be more like buttoned up when withdrawn. And they have this concept that they can't be like that they have to have the Disneyland experience and almost like bait and switch. Like, they're like, no, our website needs to act like it's going to be so fun, because otherwise no one's going to want to come. And it is more important to be authentic. And one thing that we do is try to tease out the positive aspects, because everyone is going to have something different to bring to the table. And they might not think that their personality or their way of doing things is a selling point, but it probably is if you're really putting it in the right way, in like a compelling manner, and explaining to a potential patient why it's important. And so it's better to, I think, be authentic and explain exactly what it's going to be like, so someone can make that educated decision, than, like you said, having that disjointed experience. And it does evolve over time, right? If your vision is to have that outgoing culture, but you're not really that person, you can still plan on surrounding yourself with hires and with people who are like that. And it's okay, like, to find that humanized element also, and just say on your website, our doctor's a little shy. You're going to love them. And it's so much better to kind of just remember that we are appealing to people who have concerns and worries, and like anyone else. And if they are understanding like the reality of it being that kind of experience, it's going to be helpful. So not thinking that like it has to fit into a cookie cutter of this is what it needs to be, like a good patient experience. And I love this, like, the idea of, you said, like, having a vision and realizing that it's going to evolve, and it might be this way now, but it really should be something different later.
Yeah, absolutely. So since we're talking about websites, I'm wondering, because you guys develop websites and that's a big part of it as well, and what we've been talking about. I'm wondering if you can talk to us a little bit about maybe some of the mistakes that you see orthodontic practices doing out there when it comes to, I don't know, just getting people to convert from I always equate it to online dating. I always tell my docs, like you may not realize it, but they chose to swipe right or swipe left, right? They chose to decide to put their name out and contact you. You didn't go to their door, and knock on it and be like, hey, you want to come in?
Yeah.
So would you mind talking a little bit about that for us?
Yeah, definitely. So there's probably 4 things that we look at when we're looking at a website, kind of auditing different mistakes. But Before going to that, I think it's important to take a step back and really think about what is the purpose of your website. Now, it's inevitable that your website's going to have to talk to a lot of different audiences. Current patients are going to go there, dentist referrals. There's going to be a lot of different users that get there. But at the end of the day, really the primary purpose of your website should be to provide the information necessary to make a potential patient feel comfortable and confident enough to request that appointment, and then to make it as easy as possible for them to do. So when we're looking at a website and making decisions, I think it's important to always zoom out and look at it from that lens. Is the decision I'm making, does it go to that true north of, is it going to give them the information they need, and is it going to make it easier? So the first mistake that we see a lot is like a misprioritizing of content and like what information is featured. And so this will look like you get to a website and there's the hero area and there's like a button that's like book an appointment, call here, text here. Also, we have care credit and make a payment and your new patient forms. And there's a chat pops up and virtual consult. And it's like Vegas. It's like, and there's all these things happening. And you're just like, oh my gosh, I don't even know. This isn't right. This isn't, what am I supposed to do next? There's all these things happening. And so I think a lot of times that ends up being like a knee-jerk reaction to something that's come up, right? Like we're just a service-oriented industry in general. So what a lot of times happen is like someone calls in and they say, I can't find the new patient form, and the doctor's put a button on the top of the website. Or I can't find a make a payment portal. Oh, put a button at the top of the website. And it's a little bit reactive.
And now a word from the sponsors who make this podcast possible. Hey docs, is your team overwhelmed by endless admin tasks? Let My Ortho VA throw you a lifeline. With expert HIPAA-trained virtual assistants specializing in orthodontics, My Ortho VA helps streamline everything from billing and insurance to phone support and reporting. Right now, over 100 VAs are supporting 58 practices nationwide, cutting staffing costs by up to 60%. No onboarding fees, no long-term contracts. Just a simple, cost-effective way to transform your operations and focus on patient satisfaction. Brace for growth. Visit myorthova.com to interview your next best hire and align your practice for success. Hey docs, let's talk about Smile Suite, because it's not just another scheduling system. It's a game changer in the world of new patient management. And as a proud Smile Suite partner, I've witnessed the incredible impact it has on practices of all sizes. Smile Suite means your new patient calls and web leads are expertly handled 7 days a week, even during nights and weekends. And they offer top-notch customizable presentation software and seamless post-consultation follow-up. It's like having a secret weapon for your practice's success. Curious? Dive into the revolution at GetSmileSuite.com. And don't forget to mention Hey Docs to unlock some extra goodies. Elevate your practice with Smile Suite, because every smile deserves a suite of excellence.
And I'm not saying like there are times like we have websites that have those buttons at the top, but if it's done in like a considerate way and it's the user experience has been thought through and conversations have to be had about like the trade-off, right? Yeah. So if we have a doctor who says, if we have to have this button at the top, then we're going to talk to them and say, okay, here's the trade-off. It might be a little bit distracting. You might see some lower conversion. So it's not that it's like black and white. It's just you need to be thinking through all of that content in the hierarchy. And is it going back to that primary purpose? The other thing is going to be thinking about like exit signs, right? So a lot of times we'll see like social media icons like up at the top of the website. And really that's like a flashing fun exit sign of, I know you finally decided to get an orthodontist, but what if you go on Instagram, right? So really we need to be thinking about what are the ways that we can get someone to the website or SEO or ads or marketing or reviews, but then how can we get them to stay there? It's not, I think sometimes we forget that if people had to choose if they didn't need ortho or if they needed it, it's not really a fun thing to have to research. It's been on their to-do list for a long time. And so we want to make it as painless as possible and give them all of that information to keep them on that website. So we want to make sure, one, that we are checking our priorities of all that content. The second thing is going to be thinking, is the content on the site like custom and is it conversion focused? So our 20 years of doing ortho websites, there are certain content modules and pieces that we've seen prove to compel someone to request an appointment. So we call these like our conversion pages.
Sure.
And that generally is like social proof reviews, probably how they got there to begin with. They want to know that other people trust you. Doctor bio pages are huge, which is funny because it's probably one of the things that you just sent over, right? The doctor's, oh, here's the bio I had in college. But really, that should be one of the pages you take the most time on because it's a high conversion page. People visit it. They want to learn about you. They want to understand what they're going to expect. They want to familiarize themselves with the person who they're going to trust with their treatment. So we want to make sure you're spending time there and putting that information out. Location pages are big. They want to know, are you convenient to their schedule, to their home, their work, their lifestyle? And then financing information. They want to know, is this even doable? Is it within my budget? What are the options? They don't want to waste their time any more than you want to waste their time. So they're going to visit all of that content. So you want to make sure that your website has that content, but then that it's written in a compelling way. Sure. It can't just be there and it can't just say, well, we have modern technology. I would hope so. You're a medical provider. Like high tech, what does that mean? So you want to take a step back and make sure that it's also compelling to someone who's not an orthodontist, right? Mm-hmm. Your average reader is not an orthodontist. They're a human with human concerns. And so that content needs to be written in a way to make them feel comfortable enough to answer those questions so that they want to request an appointment. And it's also, like I said, reflecting that in-office experience. Yeah. So it's super important to just make sure your content's custom, it's compelling. It does have to have all the SEO words, right? And so that's where having a good like content strategist that's writing it is super important. Our content strategist is incredible. She's a magician. She can take like the most boring phrase like dental braces and somehow craft this beautiful paragraph about how they overcame bullying and this and that. And also through dental braces. And you're like, wow, that's so impressive. So you have to blend the things, right? But it is important to remember that the purpose of your content outside of SEO is to help someone make a decision. Yeah. So you want to make sure the priorities are there. The content is custom and compelling. And then this is actually probably the first thing we look for, but you want to make sure it works. Right? Like I can't tell you how many times we do a website audit and it's the phone number is not working and the form is broken and there's just all these little things, right? And I think that we forget that it's technology just breaks sometimes. Yeah. And we're on our client sites all the time because we're always optimizing stuff and we catch so much stuff that if we weren't doing that would have just gone unnoticed. And so if you don't have a company that's doing that, it's important to maybe set a reminder on your phone once a month just to log on your website, click around. You don't want to wait until someone like complains about it because again, all these interactions, those frustration points can erode at the potential positive feelings they're going to have about potentially being your patient. So especially on mobile, you want to make sure that it's easy to use, it's loading quickly. You just reduce any of those like potential frustration points. And then unfortunately, it has to be like an ongoing process, right? So it's not just set it and forget it. You have to look at the way that users are interacting with your website and then make adjustments and optimizations from there. We always start with like tried and true content and best practices, but I can't tell you how many times it comes time to review the analytics and we're like, what? Their market likes that page? Oh, they're spending time there. That's so crazy. That's not what we thought was going to happen at all. And now we have to adjust. So when you're thinking of your website, it's not something where it's just launched and you move on. You have to be continuously auditing those user interactions because it is like your online waiting room. It's part of your practice.
Yeah. And you bring up such a good point. And I want to just to the last point, all of those points were amazing. And I'm like, yes to all of them. The word analytics. I think we talk about analytics a lot. And I think it's a buzzword, especially for online marketing. Got to look at your analytics in regard to online marketing to know how your ad spend is going. And I think as business owners, so many times, and you just said it, we forget about the analytics of our website and the importance of paying attention to the activity on your pages. Again, like you think about, gosh, as a business owner, there is so much of this stuff that is just not fun to do.
Yeah.
Do I really?
Oh, see, I'm like, I love it. I want to look at all the analytics.
Yeah. And, unless you're in your role. But I can tell you as a business owner, like the last thing I want to do is be like, she makes such a good point. And I should be looking at my website at a certain time. And I should be confirming that my Google bubble is still in the right spot when I'm looking at my Google business page. And I should be making time to go on and respond to those different things or whatnot. But I just want to bring back to the analytics component, because I think it's such an interesting point to think about. Is I believe sometimes we think about our website as just a tool for information. And I love what you said. This is like your online waiting room. If you like really think about it that way, somebody's going to come in, and if you're paying attention to your analytics, you can tell how many, like where people are coming from and looking at your website. If you've got the right analytics set up, you can see how long they're staying on each of your pages. There is so much data to be gleaned. And then if you think about, you've got a great team that's working with you, and you guys are it's like little tiny levers optimizing. If you're like, man, like you just said, I spent all this time writing out all this information about all these different appliances that I use, and that is the least popular page on my website. And yet everybody is hanging out on the Meet the Doctors page. Like
that I sent over that. Yeah.
Or I notice that people are constantly bouncing off of my website after they get from page 1 to page 3. There's so much to glean from this, but I feel like we weren't, I don't believe, really educated on how important we need to be paying attention to our websites and even the analytics that go along with it, because we just don't talk about analytics, I don't think, as well as we should.
And it's out of sight, out of mind too. But if you think about it like that, your website is your brick and mortar storefront. Like it makes me think about my first job was at Subway. I was a really good sandwich artist. And we used to have these big signs we would put on the windows, right? The window clings, and it'd be like a beautiful picture of the brand new sandwich that someone's going to come in. And imagine you put up this beautiful picture, it's going to be great. And then people walk by, you see them walk up to the door, and they're like, ooh, and they walk away. It's probably going to take a couple people before you're like, take that poster down. That is not what they want to see. Let's switch it out for something else. And then let's see how many people walk by and look at it, and they're like, oh, that looks really good. Let me come in and try that. And I think that we forget, because it's out of sight, out of mind. But if you're, as a practice, put a picture of flyer up on your front door and people are turning around in disgust when they see it, you might think, oh, maybe showing just the before and after picture without a face is not a good idea. Like maybe showing something, because it's like that face, you're not seeing that reaction. And so it's such an investment too. Like you're putting so much time in it that I think sometimes there's the misconception of, like I said, like analytics being like numbers and users, and not thinking about that they are people that are interacting. And so they should be looked at as the same as if someone was frustrated in your office. And so if you're thinking about, instead of analytics, think about it of like interactions, I think is sometimes helpful for us to rephrase it and say, we're not going to look at your analytics today. We're going to talk about your user interactions. Like, how are people interacting with your website? And there's so much that we can learn from it. So there's a thing now where you can, in certain analytics softwares, you can see it's called rage clicks. And it's like the most fun thing to watch. And it's literally like videos of people, or like a screen recording, and it shows people on your website. And it's when they repeatedly click on something and then leave. It's called a rage click. And we'll watch the recordings of popcorn on a Friday night. We're like, this is so great, because there might be something that you think doesn't look like a button, or you think doesn't look like, but someone obviously is frustrated and they leave because they have that experience. And it's the same way if they were in your office and the door was locked and they couldn't get in and they get frustrated and leave, you would know that and you would fix it. And so it's important to remember that they are an experience if someone was walking away from your office versus them like walking away from your website.
Yeah. Oh, I love that visual. I love just the visual from a sign and people walking. I mean, it is, and that is so true to what our websites are and our brand. What are we portraying there? We could just keep going and going here, but at some point we got to finish up, and we just have to have you on again to talk more.
Deal.
If a doc is listening and they're like, this has really given me a lot to think about, and maybe I really do need to think about my brand, but maybe do what we would call, you and I know, to be like a brand audit, and really see if there is consistency between their offline and their online presence. And what are some things that they could do to help walk them through Do I need to be paying attention to this a little bit more, or do I have some inconsistencies going on?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the first thing is most important is going to be that experience, right?
Mhm.
And so I would put the attention there first and go on your website, have someone who's like a friend or something in your target demographic, have them click around, ask them if I needed to ask you to schedule an appointment, is it clear? Is it obvious how to do that? Is everything working? Do an appointment request and then look at that language, look at the experience that's happening. You want to make sure you're getting followed up quickly. We are a convenience culture. It's so bad now. Amazon has ruined us. We can all blame them.
Yep.
So you want to make sure that your potential patients are getting followed up with right away. You remember all those friction points, even if they don't realize it, it's going to add up to have that subconscious feeling around your practice, right? So it's if you are on the phone with your bank and you just want to talk to a person and you're hitting the button over and over again and you can't get to that person, by the time you get to the associate, you should feel relieved, but you really don't, right? You're just like, oh, you wasted my time. And so all of those micro interactions really affect the overall feeling of someone and that expectation and putting them on guard before they come into your practice. So look at the new patient experience, do that appointment request, and start thinking about every one of those micro interactions. Was it easy to reach out? Did I get an immediate follow up? Parents and professionals, we want to cross something off our list. And it is awful to finally get to the point you do the request and then at 2 days, someone calls you back, then you have to call them back and it's like a whole thing. So you want to make sure that you're being followed up quickly and then audit the language that's being put out, right? Like the confirmation text, the scheduling process, even being scheduled out really far, that can be like a micro interaction of frustration. Like, oh, now I have to wait this long to do it. So you want to be making sure that every service point, again, would you say that to them in their office? Is that how you would treat them? And comparing that. Looking at the website, again, stepping back and saying, is this how I talk? Is this the way it's going to feel when someone comes into my office? Really thinking through that conversion content, looking at the user interactions on specific pages and thinking about, okay, what did I say that made them upset? Or what did I say that made them want to stay? So looking at that experience and then thinking about if you were a third-party person who didn't know how great you were, thus far, all the information that's out there, is it giving you enough? And then from a visual standpoint, you want to just take a step back and look at all of it. If you can, so pull your website up on one screen, have your phone up on another, have your Instagram feed on something, and then lay out like your new patient folder and your referral pad and a picture of your billboard and lay it all out and take a step back and look at it and say, does this look like a cohesive family, right? Does it look, if I was driving by and just saw this and then saw a flyer the next day, would I connect that it's the same thing? Because that cohesive, consistent exposure, it's what's going to build that understanding that you're there and they can trust you. And no one wants the like indie garage band for their medical care, right? No one wants to be like, yeah, you probably haven't heard of them. No, they want to say, I'm going to this orthodontist, and they want someone to be like, oh, I feel like I've heard of them, or I've heard good things, or I saw their billboard. They have those like cringy lawyer billboards. It's always, I'll fight for you. There's a reason they have those, because the more you see that face when something bad happens, you're like, man, I just feel like Brad's going to fight for me. And I just don't even know why. So take a step back and look at all of it and say, does this look like a family? Because over time, it's going to help build that implicit trust.
Yeah. Oh, such good thoughts there. And I love it that the content audit, I think, is huge. And again, it's thinking about, again, taking it all the way back. Everything has to be cohesive or you get brain confusion. And again, I see it all the time where I've got docs that are like, we're super modern and we're digital. And yet a patient has to come in and fill out 500 paper forms. I'm like, how does that support the messaging that you're putting out there? Let's figure it out. Let's get digital. It's what you need to do. We are not in the 90s anymore. And I just want to point this out too, to conclude from a consultant standpoint. I cannot tell you how many times I see team members hired into practices and they are never encouraged to go on the website, to research the company, to have an understanding of why the culture is what it is. And docs, I'm going to challenge you out there. Make sure that your team knows the content that you've got out there. If they've been on your website, have, especially those new team members, have they done all the things that Amanda was just saying to get familiarized with the experience that you're working on, so that as they are assimilating into your practice and becoming those new cheerleaders for their practice, they aren't shooting it off in their own direction and again creating confusion within that experience or that brand.
And they're probably the best ones to do it because they're an outsider's perspective. They're not led the witness already. So I think, and we say the same thing, especially for like rebrands, when someone's acquiring a practice and like we're putting so much effort into getting the message out into the community and telling us a compelling story of this is why this doctor's here and this is why it's so great for you, and putting all this effort into the story around it that's going to engage patients into it. And then the front desk answers the phone and they're like, hey, is doctor there? And they're like, no, he retired. And I'm like, oh no. So we're like, you have to have a script and you have to get everyone on board. Or, oh no, we were bought out. And we're like, no, it's not. No, it's a beautiful story of coming home. And they have all these personal things around it. We put all this effort into this big macro picture. We forget about the front line, right? The people who are right there. So it's so important to know, everyone know the story, everyone be on the same brand. If, your assistant chairside is the one chatting with them more often and they're saying, oh, so I noticed someone's the new doctor. What's his story? And there's, I don't know. He just got here. So super important. Everyone's on the same page. Scripting. We love scripting.
Yes. I could not agree more. Amanda, this has been just amazing getting your insight on this. And I feel like very easy, tangible, pieces for docs to walk away with, or for my younger ones out there that may be saying, hey, when I'm ready to do my practice or when I'm ready to purchase that practice, I'm going to definitely tuck this knowledge away so that I can pull it back out again. So if somebody wants to get a hold of you, if they want to learn more, if they are just like, I think it's time, what's going to be the best way that they can reach out to eNox?
Yeah, so you can email me at Amanda@eNox.media or go to our website. There's a little chat bubble. I answer the chat. So you can be like, hey, Amanda, I just saw. And really any Instagram, you can Instagram DM us. I'll answer the Instagram DM. But yeah, email or just reach out. And we'll be at AAO this year too. So excited about that. So drop by the conferences. We'll see you there.
Yeah, perfect. All right. You know how I like to finish up. Hey, docs. I like to finish it up with a little speed round. So are you ready for the challenge?
I'm ready. That was not confident. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm ready.
You got this. Warm up, stretch up.
Okay, I'm ready. Ready.
You're good. Okay, here we go. What is one daily habit or ritual that helps you stay productive or balanced?
Lists. I'm a big list maker and then make micro lists from my list. So I like having my whole list of things I need to do. And then I take a sticky note and I do one or two things. And I tell myself I can only work on the sticky note right now. So that helps me to stay focused and not go off on a tangent. Is I'll stop and I'll look at my note and this is not on the note. I need to come back.
I love.
And then you get to cross it off in two places. That's a life hack. You mini note and to-do list.
Yeah. And then you feel uber accomplished, right?
Yes.
You're like, yeah, I did this today. All right. What is your go-to strategy for getting unstuck when you're facing a really tough problem?
Taking a walk. And kind of thinking about definitely getting moving is really helpful. We use Slack and our team knows that if I have a little walking emoji, I'm like, I'm going to figure it out walk. So taking a walk or honestly taking a nap, or if I can sleep on it, it's even better. But I all the time, if I'm like, take a walk, I can't figure it out. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to lay on a hammock for 20 minutes and just think about the problem and kind of drift off to sleep. And then my alarm goes off and it's, because sometimes I think I'm the one stopping my brain from figuring it out.
Yeah.
So just letting myself ruminate and sleep on something and let my brain do what it needs to do. So they're like opposites. I take a nap or I take a walk, but
yeah, I think that's great. I think the biggest thing is just getting your brain unstuck.
Yes.
Which is sometimes, I think we work so hard to figure it out that sometimes it's freeing it. That's really,
and it's right in front of you. You just need to like be focused on something else. I think
yeah. Okay. How about a few more? If you could just add one unconventional perk to a workplace, what do you think you would add?
So this is something I'm fully intending on doing next year. I think strongly that the Monday after daylight savings time change should be a holiday because it's always the worst.
true.
So this year I decided, I'm like, we're going to implement next year. Monday, you're allowed to be an hour late or you're allowed to take a self-care day. It's just, we all need to be in it together because losing that hour, the spring forward is so hard every time.
Yes. Come on, government. Just get
Yeah.
it together. Let's stop doing this. All right.
Yeah,
And
they actually say heart attacks and stuff are higher the Monday after. So I should get like an employee benefit deduction, right? This should be my health insurance should allow us to do this. I'm just trying to save everybody the stress.
I love it. I love it. I think that's a great perk. All right. And then to finish it up, if you had been given one piece of advice that you wish you had followed earlier in your career, what would that be?
I think that it's okay to be like unprofessional and authentic. I think early on in my career, I had this concept that in business, you had to be like professional and buttoned up. And I think that I've recently found more success in being told that it's okay just to be honest with people. And we opened this call, I'm like, I'm so nervous. I'm so excited. And I think that's okay to not pretend or put forth this facade. So I think just that remember that we're all humans just living in a hard world and that it's completely okay to be vulnerable. And I think it actually allows other people to feel that way too. So it's okay to be silly in business. Maybe that's fine.
I love
Nice.
that. It was such an absolute pleasure. I've been waiting a while to have you on Hey Docs, and I'm glad we finally got it worked out.
Definitely.
So thanks so much for taking time to do this. And I am sure you're going to have a lot of listeners reaching out being like, I think I need to give Amanda a call.
They're going to be like, tell me about that sandwich experience. What's the best way to make your Subway sandwich?
Exactly.
I have tips for that too.
Thanks again.
Thanks.